Hey everyone, today I'm gonna talk about validating surface water detection method using a hand-labeled planet-scope dataset. You probably already heard of this presentation in the HU fall meeting in Chicago last year. So that time I will have some update and I will talk about something more in detail. And this is a project that funded by NASA Goddard Space Flight Center and working with the members, working with Dr. Rohit Mukherjee and Prashant Sharma and Dr. Telman in the social pixel lab. Oh, I see. So managing surface water is really important for resource management because surface water is really important to, especially for us to know, sorry, So there are several existing methods, but we don't know which method is the best because it's hard to see. Most of them are using their own validation strategy. So that's the reason why we decide to make our own hand-labeled surface water dataset for people to make an independent evaluation for their own method or for people to train their new water detection method. So, which is the data from the near daily planet scope imagery, accurate at 3 meter spatial resolution that contain 8 spectral bands. And we decide to make our each tips into 1024 multiple 1024 pixel because it can perfectly fit 376 to multiple 376 Sentinel-1 or Sentinel-2 image, or 102 multiple 102 Landsat 8 image, depends on what kind of which original data set they use to train for their own method. So first we need to choose random samples all over the world globally. We first created the 3 miles buffer around all the land surface water bodies, and then we randomly drop, and then within each biomes in all the 14 biomes, we drop zero random points into each safe file of the biomes. For example, we drop we drop some random points into the tropical grasslands, savanna, and shrublands, and we extracted those, and then we set those points that extracted by each by. Sorry, my I'm sorry, I'm too nervous, so my logic goes kind of messy here. Okay, let me explain from the beginning. We first created the 3 miles surface water 3 miles buffer around the surface water, and then we we drop the random points into the buffers, and use the buffers extracted by each biome, and then we have those random points in each 14 biomes. So from each 14 biomes, depends on the surface cover, with randomly select 6 to 7 points for them. So if the biome is much larger and wide, you just select 7 points. And in this, so we use the ArcGIS Pro Tools and also Python script for this part. And then after we run all the 14 biomes, we got the 90 globally distributed samples. And then we need to choose the PlanetScope images within 2021 to 2022, which should be the closest image that we have. So for choosing data, we usually try to choose the closest 0% cover for all the samples, and also for those samples that in the high latitude or high elevation areas, we will try to avoid ice cover, which means we usually choose the samples that during summer or spring. And for the seasonal water bodies, we try to avoid the dry seasons, and we usually choose the wet season for them. And then for the data process part, with Python script to cut each image into 1024 multiple 1024 chips, and then we randomly choose one chip from those chips that landed on the water body, and we use two band combination, which is true color combination and fast color combination, because with the true color and fast color images, we are easy to compare with different combinations, so it will be easier for us to do a label and judge which part is actually covered by the water body. And then we transfer the chips from the TIF to JPG, because the label box only available for the JPG images. And after doing that, we upload all the chips into label box. So this is the profile of the label box. Here we use generally, even though this shows 4 categories here, but actually we only use water, low confidence water, and others. Just ignore the non-water we create by mistake. And water category means we are sure this area is covered by, with its light blue, and we're sure this area is covered by water. So when we do the hand label, that we will use categories of this category to make this area like the water that we are really confident about. Yeah, this is water. And for low confident water, so sometimes it's hard to tell, but it's more like maybe like we would think it's lower than maybe 80%, but higher than 40%. We think this should be water, so we would think it's a low confident water. Others, it's a really tricky category, because only very, very few chips use others. For example, like there's one chip that is Salt Lake. We are not really sure on this white salt, is there water or not. We don't know, so we will just group it into others. And for us, we use the Wacom Cinti 16 digital drawing screen and Wacom Pro Pen to do our hand labeling. But also from my later labelers training, I think iPad and Apple Pen is work for this hand labeling too, so I would recommend to use that too. And our labeling time for longest chips, like for example this one, I spent about 3.3 hours and 3.5 hours for this one, which takes a lot of time. But shortest, like some really simple image that I don't need to I don't need to focus on too many detail like this small things. It's usually like around 20 minutes. So the total labeling hours is around 90 hours for all the 90 samples, and the total surface area that we labeled is around 846 square kilometers. And here are some of our products that we can see is covered of the world, and also with different kind of water body from field to the river to lakes or water reservoir. And this one, the Australia one, is seasonal water, so we choose the rainy season for it, so we can see some water in this river, but mostly it's dry. And here's the river from India, and this river is from China. And here I want to talk about is this kind of shade part. We decided to label this part as low confidence because it's hard to tell if there are water in the shade or not, like usually the shade caused by the high cliff. And here is the data for our water pixels. We can see most of the chips has lower, like less than 20% of water cover, and in total our water surface is at 26.1%, and low confidence water is only like 1.3%. So for others, it's even lower, probably much less than 1%. So we use two existing water detection methods we use our current dataset test two existing methods. One is the eco% solution, which we call EPS, that made by Dr. Policelli from NASA. This method is still in development, so if you have some questions, you can email Dr. Policelli and contact him. I will provide his email address in the last page. And another one that we use to do a comparison is the global flood map, which we call water extent, which I will use at GFM. And both of them are based on Sentinel-1. Sorry. So I'm gonna show a couple of examples between the hand labels and also the result of these two methods. So first is the open water area. So we can see both of these two methods are doing a really good job, but especially we can see they have kind of close data for their precision. But the thing is, they are EPS and GFM, they are existing in a different way. Like EPS are doing a perfect work along the shoreline that has including a lot of details, and even like those kind of smaller water bodies that they can at least detect some of them. I think some part that they didn't notice, maybe because of the resolution reason, because Sentinel-1 that has more coarse image than planiscope. But also, another thing is they have a lot of noise inside of the water body. That's probably the EPS need to work for it more. And GFM doing really well in the inside of this open water part, but the shoreline, it looks too like many parts they lost. It looks too coarse, like it's not really matching the real shoreline in the either hand label or we can see like in the planiscope image. And also GFM didn't really detect the smaller water bodies. So seems like it's hard for GFM to include some details for their water detection. And here, this is a water reservoir in South America. And we can see the similar things happen, like EPS doing the better work for this shoreline and those kind of to detect those kind of small islands. But GFM just ignore most of islands, especially in this area, and cannot detect this river at all. So GFM has almost no recover for this, no record for this river. But EPS can detect some part of this river, but not the whole river part. Especially might last some pixels between the two bridges, and also some pixel into the between the islands. And also there are lots of noise in the open water skin, but that's just same as the last one. And here is an example that both of them didn't really do a good work. So here we can see there's a tip like near in Ohio that is a river passing construction area, and also some small water tunnels going to the north, and also some small pound, like probably made by human-made pound in the construction area. So EPS, both of them for some reason lost the middle part of river, both EPS and GFM, and also GFM completely didn't detect those two water tunnel at all, and also the waters in the construction area. But EPS didn't do the same thing too. Instead, it dropped lots of noise instead of the construction area. That I guess is probably caused by the shade or some other things that bothered the method, and also lots of noise inside the river too. Now here's another example that both of them didn't really do well, which is the Great River in Indonesia. Almost none of them detect this Great River, but that was something we should, the EPS and GFM also, and also probably the current surface water detection method need to focus on, because breakwater is a really common water type in the plain area, and also especially in many tropical area with lots of like rainfall, with large participation, and also more plain surface with. So Great River is very common. They're wide and shallow, so probably it could be a reason that it's hard to detect it. But since they are really important, especially for water management and also flood study, I think that this can be an example to show that the later water detection method should work on more. So here is the general comparison between the EPS and GFM. We can see, even though the average, they're kind of close, but still EPS is doing the more solid work in especially in the presentation, so they have less variety of data. So in this case, maybe I could see EPS is generally doing a better job. Here is the discussion and our next step questions. So my first thing that I will discuss is the important to increase the number of labelers. So this time, because our time was limited, I was the only labeler for this project. But still, we had lots of discussions and also debate for some chips, especially some chips that has very shallow water, or some chips that is really like narrow, or like which chips that we should use, or which chips we should drop. I'm pretty sure if we increase the number of labelers, we probably will have more debate on this, because everybody have our own everybody probably have our own understanding about each satellite image, and I guess we will have much longer labeling time. But also, I think if we have more labelers for this data set, we will have also better chance to avoid lots of bias, because I'm pretty sure while I'm doing my label, I also label with my bias too. Even later, like this semester, when I look back my old labels and check them, I have to reduce some of the labels, because I feel what I did in the very beginning was not good enough. And also, I think even though we already have 90 samples for this data set, but still probably need to include a wider variety of label water body images for training in the future, because even though we try to, this is probably one thing that I think is not really good for the random selection, because sometimes they select the really similar to water bodies. So, and sometimes they select chips that has almost maybe only like 80% of water cover, or even maybe more than 80%. So those chips probably, me and Rahim Prashandy, and we think it could be not really useful in the data set, even though they are easy to label. So I think maybe our next step should be include more wider variety of images. But also we had a discussion that's why, like, if we include some kind of like area that water bodies with like very detailed or small water body, would it cause more noise for the methods? But I think it depends on what kind of method that. I think it depends on method, like what kind of water body this method want to detect. Is a large water body, or is some kind of like smaller river, like pool, pond, or water tunnel that is very in detail. I think for people who want to use our dataset to train, wider variety of image could give them more opportunities. They probably can choose to drop some kind of image that they think they don't really need to. And later, what we want to know is, since we are also training it's like Rohit is working on training our own surface water detection method. We want to know, like, at least how many labels would be necessary to train a water detection tool. And also, we want to know what kind of images that could be the most suitable image to label and train data. And thank you for listening, and thanks for everybody that working on this project, and especially thanks for Dr. Lookingbell build up the connection between me and Dr. Tillman and give me an opportunity. And thank you guys to give me an opportunity to work on this project.